If you don't go to church, it may feel like church is kind of a private club, but Jesus taught that God's house is for you. Jesus said God's house of prayer is for everyone. Good morning and welcome to the 755 Live. For about 5 minutes, you'll hear all about easy to remember soundbite versions of what Jesus said. The point? To help you experience life to the fullest, the Jesus way. Today's Jesus said comes from Matthew chapter 21, verses 12 through 13. In chapter 12, it starts that Jesus entered the table and began to drive out all the people buying and selling animals for sacrifice. He knocked over the tables of the money changers and the chairs of those selling doves. He said to them, "The scriptures declare, my temple will be called a house of prayer, but you have turned it into a den of thieves." We read a parallel in Mark chapter 11, verse 15 through 17. It says, "When they arrived in Jerusalem, Jesus entered the table and began to drive out the people buying and selling animals for sacrifices. He knocked over the tables of the money changers and the chairs of those selling doves, and he stopped everyone from using the temple as a marketplace. He said to them, 'The scriptures declare, my temple will be called a house of prayer for all nations, but you have turned it into a den of thieves.'" Now, this story is not an excuse for anger. Have you ever heard people say, well, even Jesus turned over your tables, even Jesus, chased people with a whip, all these different things? This is not an excuse for that. Jesus not only did that, that I don't want to call it an angry outburst, but he had this moment of, doing these things because he was zealous for the Lord, and, he wanted to purify the house of his father. But, he also walked on water and raised the dead. It's easy for us to have that self-righteous anger, but walking on water is not easy. So obviously we're not Jesus. So let's see you do the real hard things that Jesus did before you do the things that he did that seem like, oh, I can do that then. Let's not justify ourselves just because Jesus did it. The real story here is, why did Jesus do this? What was so wrong that the Son of God, who never defended himself, went on the offense? The story is in all four gospel accounts. In the book of John, we get some insight. So we look at John chapter 2, verse 17. It says, "Then his disciples remembered this prophecy from the scriptures. Passion for God's house will consume me." This was all about God's house. It wasn't about the people, the anger, none of it. It was about God's house. And it was intended to be for everybody, all nations, all kinds of people. But something was very wrong. Jesus called it a marketplace. Convenience isn't sacrifice. These people had made it into something it wasn't. He said it's like God's house of prayer is supposed to be for everybody. The money changers and, they were in there doing these different things for Jewish people to change the standard Greek and Roman money for Jewish and Tyrian shekels. And, it was convenient. These people didn't have to do anything. They were missing the point. God's house today is represented by the spiritual building we call the church. But it's not supposed to be a marketplace where we just offer worship to God based on our convenience. But it has become such a business. Yes, it's hard to admit that, but it has. That people come far from, that many people far from God think that church is just all about the money. And that they're not welcome. They think that, it's a private club. And maybe we do need to do some cleaning out, do some turning over of the tables, who knows? Because then we have to ask ourselves, are we worshiping God only when it's convenient? Are we doing what's easy? Like these people who were making these sacrifices, but they weren't really sacrificing anything. It was all there for them. There was no hard sacrifice there. And then also, is everyone welcome? Or only people like you welcome? Is God's house of prayer for everybody? So the question we ask ourselves is, how can we put that into action today? How can we make sure that the building that we call church, the group that we call the body of Christ, that we're making God's house of prayer for everybody? So thank you so much for listening. I hope you like, comment, and share, get the word out. If you're not doing the Bible plan with us, remember it's at bible.today.church. It's an easy to follow plan, 5 days a week, little parts where you can read and, do as much as you can. And it's an easy way to keep up with us with the Bible plan. So thank you so much again for listening. I really appreciate you. I hope you have an amazing day. And I hope that this time together has helped you live life to the fullest, the Jesus way. Remember, every time we get together, we say to follow Jesus today and love first. Thank you.